Well, gentlemen, welcome to Family Hour. We're going to continue our series on Dowd's fulfillment of Pesach, Matsah, and Bikurym. Very few things as important to us as this. I understand that, and I have heard, I'm sure you have also heard, that Leah has created a new song. It's actually a collaborative effort. It was between Leah and myself. I wrote the lyrics for the song about 6 months ago, and Leah rescored the song. And I don't know if she did all of the graphics by herself, or Kevin, if you were part of that mix. But we do have her song, and we do want to play it at the beginning of this show here. But let's start with a bit of an introduction.
Okay.
First and foremost, I'm going to continue to see if I can move down here a little bit so that I get out from under the shadow of the boxes. Up on the top there, we have Kevin, and below him, that's Captain Kirk.
Hey.
Gentlemen, welcome to Family Hour of the blog. This is until sunset for us, and since we are way east of the rest of you civilians out here in the islands, and the sun has not set here yet, we are still celebrating the very important time, maybe the most important time of the year. I think it still is. There will be a time that will actually become more important, but for right now, there is nothing that is as important as Chag Matzah. And I've just finished writing so many responses today on social media, both on X and Facebook, about this, that there is an overwhelming, and it is ubiquitous in the Jewish community, that they have completely, totally written Matzah and Bikurym out of their lives. For them, it is a 7-day holiday of Passover. Mm-hmm. And for them, nothing happens after Passover. It's like Christians thinking that today was Good Friday. No one would be good about it.
Right. No, good point.
Yeah, they think it's Good Friday, and that nothing happened on Saturday either. And then they turn Bikurym into Easter, a tribute to the Babylonians, I guess. So, there's very little I can do with the Christians to get them to realize that Jesus never existed, and that all that Jesus is a crude counterfeit of Dowd David, a product of identity theft. But for Christians, or for Jews, as they celebrate Passover, for them to turn Passover into a 7-day event is such a travesty. And it's because of the rabbis. And what they do by celebrating Passover and not observing matzah is the worst of all possible options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are saying,
Wow.
but fortunately, they don't celebrate Passover correctly. They celebrate Passover as Freedom Day, as Liberty Day, as if this was the day they were freed from
That's right.
Egypt.
Yeah.
But first of all, it wasn't Egypt, it was Mitzrayim. And it means the crucibles of human religious and political oppression. But there was no freedom on Pesach. How could they not know that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they went to bed, didn't they?
It's like they had a really nice meal. They stayed up late because there was a lot of stuff to do. They got their act together, but they went to sleep that night.
Yeah.
They were still in Mitzrayim.
They're still slaves.
They were still slaves. It was not until Matzah that they left Mitzrayim and began to cross the Sinai Peninsula en route to the Gulf of Aqaba, crossing of the Red Sea. And so Liberation Day is Matzah. And that's symbolic of us being liberated from our political and religious guilt, just as the children of Israel were distanced from, they took their exodus from the political and religious corruption of Mitzrayim. This is all part of that process. I think I had a laptop, maybe. No, I guess not. I was thinking maybe it was blocking the view, because I actually have a Wookiee here, but he's He's laying down, so he's out of camera sight. So excuse my reach there. But what's so essential is that they miss the entire purpose of this day. And Yahweh was really clear in his description of it. What Yahweh said is that when it comes to Pesach, Matsah Bikurym, Chag Matzah, the event is Chag Matzah.
Mm-hmm.
What we're celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
we began on a Friday evening, so this is our 7th and final day of Chag Matzah. And the Pesach is just the first day of Chag Matzah.
Understood.
And the important day is Matzah. It is called the essential day. Pesach's not called essential. Pesach is not even referenced as any derivative of Shabbat or Shabbaton, and yet there is a direct Shabbat reference to Matzah.
Yeah.
Matzah is called the Kodesh Day, not Passover. Matzah is the one that gets the Chag celebration designation.
Mm-hmm.
And so Yahweh is really clear that the important day is Matzah, because that's the day that Dowd, David, in the second of 3 lives, carried our guilt with him. Well, there his Mr. Handsome right there.
Yeah.
You can now see the
Hey, look.
yeah, there's Wookie. He's going to want to go over and play keyboard. There's no question about it. That's his next play. But he's dressed for success here. For this, he's got his rose-colored and blue fancy shirt on. But it was Dowd's Bashar body that fulfilled Pesach in 33 CE as he came back in year 4000 Yah in his second of 3 lives. And the following day, it was his Nefesh soul that carried our guilt into Sheol, so that once it was carried into Sheol and deposited there, we look perfect before Yah, because our guilt is unseen and unseeable. It's unsearchable.
Never can get it out.
Yeah, so we don't even have to be saved anymore. We're perfect before God. And that's the purpose of Matzah. And what he's carrying with him is religious and political guilt. Maybe that's why the rabbis, who are very political and exceedingly religious, don't like matzah very much. Is that the purpose of it is to rid the soul of them out. Yeah, right. is to rid the soul of them. Well, now you know the reason. But even though that's the reason that rabbis nixed it, they cost 100 generations of Jews their soul. That
There's
was
a price
the
for that.
consequence of this malfeasance.
Mm-hmm.
What a terrible travesty. And so the thing I just want to underscore before we go on with this program is that Jews, you've had your rabbis, your religious leaders rob you of salvation, of your eternal life, of a chance to know Yahweh, whose name, of course, they also erased because they didn't want you to know God's name either, because they didn't want you to know God. Because if you knew God, you wouldn't pay any attention to them because God despises them.
Yeah.
So they robbed you of God's name. They robbed you of a relationship with him. They robbed you of the covenant. They robbed you of knowing and developing a relationship with your Messiah and King, who is Dowd David. All of this, and they took your soul away from you so that they could make money and have prestige being religious, which God hates.
Yes.
So the single most important thing, as Jews finalized in the last day of their errant celebration of Passover as a 7-day holiday, is for them to know that it's absolutely, unequivocally wrong and devastating for them. And if you don't come clean of this and distance yourself from the rabbis, just say goodbye. You can't practice Judaism if you're going to engage in the covenant. But you need to separate yourself from the rabbis and embrace father and son, Yahweh and Dowd, if this is going to work out for you. Otherwise, you're going to have done the greatest possible damage to yourself. You're going to be eternally separated from God, and that is a really bad thing. That's far worse than what's happened to most Israelites up to this point, which is that they have been simply robbed of their souls ceasing to exist after their mortal death. And that's really a shame right now, because there'll be so many Jews are going to die in the time of Israel's troubles. It's beginning here in now 13 months. And think of all of the Jews that died on 10/7. And because of rabbinic Judaism, that was the end of their lives. There is nothing more. And, don't blame me. Don't blame God. Yeah. You need to hold the rabbis accountable. They did this on purpose. So it is Chag Matzah, not a 7-day celebration of Passover. Passover is just the first day of Chag Matzah. Passover is where Dowd opened the door to life by allowing his Bashar body in his second of 3 lives in year 4000 Yah, 33 CE, to serve as the Passover lamb. And he explained it all in the 22nd Mizmor, which is the text we're going to return to here momentarily. And then on Matzah, Dowd accepted our guilt on his nefesh. That's why he just made the transition from his Bashar body to nefesh soul in the passage we're going to re-engage in on the 22nd Mizmor. Also, that our guilt could be removed, we become immortal, and then the Bikur, firstborn son of God, leads the way to the fulfillment of Bikurym, which is firstborn children, the following day. Those are the first 3 days of Chag Matzah. That's God's plan. It's not the rabbinic plan. The difference is that God can give you eternal life in his family and enrich and empower your soul with his plan. And all the rabbis can do is lie to you and rob you.
And kill your soul.
Yeah, and destroy your soul. All right, with that, before we go now into our presentation here and our resumption of the 22nd Mizmor, I want to explain something that I'm going to have Leah cue the song, this collaborative effort between, husband and wife here. I wrote the lyrics. Leah scored the music and the graphics for this beautiful presentation with Kevin. So thank you, Kevin, for participating in that. You guys are also working on my Sorotan challenge too, because that one's funny. And we need the Sorotan challenge going. But this was my first song, so I'm really glad to have it here. Now, you may have noticed that yesterday I did not broadcast, and this morning we did not do a live stream either. Just a quick explanation. 2 things were happening. One is, if you can see behind me here, you will see Mother of Pearl in the backdrop as opposed to just the white cabinets. And so we did a rearrange. We had the cabinets on both sides that I'm looking at and behind me done in Mother of Pearl, which is the blue theme for the entire residence now. Is the walls and cabinets and everything are covered in Mother of Pearl. And blue is Yahweh's color, and so they're decked out in blue. The second thing is our Starlink satellite feed was old, and Starlink will not allow you to just replace your satellite. So we had to have an entire new service with Starlink to get the Gen 3 antenna. We now have the Gen 3 antenna. We have 5 times better downlink and a little better uplink, so we can do this show with greater confidence. But then as we did that, we had some inefficiencies in our internal network, even though I've spent a bloody fortune on the very, very top, most sophisticated rendition of wireless here that's actually superior to coax, to Ethernet. But there were some glitches that were needed to be resolved to make all of that work as well. And so with all of that going on, and these cupboards behind me are filled with electronics, that's so we can't work on resolving this and getting the network efficient in these closets while we're broadcasting the show.
Right.
Nor can we do it while we're doing the core item? So it was just easier to give these 2 days to the technicians. Will be back in the morning, and they hopefully will get it all resolved here for us. All right. With that said, Miss Leah, can you play your score? This is called the Shem of El.
The Shem of El will open heaven's door. Why have you erased my name? I know you, but you do not know me. Isn't that a shame? Moshe told you Yahweh is my Shem, right in my Torah, without synonym. I spoke with you then in blazing flame and booming voice, but you pushed me away. It was not your best choice. Now I call out again, Yisrael Shalom. Listen, hear the call. Yahweh's voice calls you home. You have gone it alone. It has not worked out well. Living in denial, you put me on trial. So now where are you to dwell? Do tell. You are hated by everyone, a house divided. Why remain so misguided and undecided, while I still love you? Moshe told you Yahweh is my Shem, right in my Torah, without synonym. Let's cut the chagrin, look up, not down. There is life in my name. This isn't a game, yet you bear the blame. All the same, terrorists attack, more will come. I would stop it if not for the rabbinical scum. In this time of trouble, you need not succumb. Some will trust and rely on me and choose a different outcome. So now I have a herald, a voice I have chosen. He sings for me, he sings to you. It's time we sing on key and agree. Moshe told you Yahweh is my Shem, right in my Torah, without synonym. Yahweh is my Shem.
Well, I can tell you with certain 2 paws up. Wookie may also be nearsighted because I don't think he ever got more than a half an inch from the screen. Oh, there we are. Now we're all lined up in little boxes. Maybe they can figure out how to get me out of the box. Whoop, they got me out of the box, but they don't know how to get you guys back in. So Wookie thinks that's a really nice guy.
Hot dog.
Well, oh, here we go. There we go. Okay, well, all resolved. Thank you for being dog on duty. I appreciate it, buddy. All right. That was quite a song.
Wookie with an encore.
Yeah, and with an encore. I told you got 2 paws up, plus a hearty woof. Okay, well, come on now, buddy. Come on. There we go. All right. Well, we're going to get everything squared away here.
Good luck.
Wookie knocked the mouse down on the ground, and well, Wookie, I'm sorry, buddy, that you're going to have to go. Now we're going to have to get on with our program. All right. Well, sorry to have to retire the Wookie. That was. I know he's an internet sensation. He's looking up now through. I've got a glass desk here. He's looking up through the glass and said, "How dare you?"
Yeah, well,
For a movie just went. But this is the first time I think the Wookiee has actually spoken as part of the family hour. So he was
breaking new ground.
Yeah, there we go. He's over there now, and Rich's lap, so he'll be fine. And with his girlfriend Asher. All right, we're going to return now to the 22nd Ms. Moore. Leia just walked by with Mr. Monkey that Wookie will be entertained with. All right, we're a professional outfit here, as you can tell.
Smooth.
Fortunately, we work for a god that has a sense of humor. More boy does he ever, and he needs it. Has chosen to work with us, and our king definitely has a sense of humor. But we're going to get upon the business of their business. And this is the 20th statement from the 22nd Mizmor Psalm, and it is a powerful one. It is one of those many times that Dowd does something that really no one else did as a prophet. And that is because when Dowd is speaking as a prophet, he's very often a participant.
Yeah.
And the others are not. The others are witnesses.
Right.
Yeah, there's not a big difference really between the job that I do and that we're doing here and the job the prophets I have done, because they witnessed prior or future events and then reported in our past what they have seen, just like we're witnessing the Torah and prophets and what we have seen there and explaining it as it relates to our current situation. But Dowd, well, he, the second of three lives, he fulfilled this prophecy. And so he therefore has a reason when speaking to Yahweh, who he collaborated with, to use both first and second person volition. And he does it throughout his song. In fact, it was the use of the imperative, which is second person volition, you want, you will, it's your desire. And the cohortative, I want, this is my will, is what I've decided upon in first person volition. And since Dowd wrote this Mizmor in first person, when he speaks of you, it is Yahweh. When he speaks of me, it is Dowd himself. And so he is projecting Yahweh's will, Yahweh's desires, Yahweh's choices, and his own, such that they are collaborative, that he was a man after God's heart because, well, they had exactly the same motives, same inclinations, same desires. They were father and son. So it is my desire and your will, my choice and yours, to deliver my soul, to snatch away and save my soul from the horror, the heat, the desolation, and ruin, my unique position as the son and most precious of lives, as the firstborn child, from the influence of the contemptible scum and abased yelpers. We had an abased yelper here just a moment ago, but I'm not going to call Wookie. I'm not going to call Wookie. Yeah. The word there is Caleb, and Caleb is the Hebrew word for dog. It can be a very favorable term, and it means kol, all, leb, heart. And when it speaks of the person named Koleb, for example, since leb in Hebrew actually speaks of judgment and inclination, volition, but your ability to decide what you think is appropriate and having the character to carry it out. that would be leb. And koleb means you have considerable character and your judgment is sound. And that would be Koleb, one of the two men that was allowed into the promised land of that initial generation. And the other being Yeshua, which would be Yahweh saves, Yahweh delivers. And that's the positive side. On the negative side is it would be kind of all emotion, but the dogs that existed in Israel going back 3,000 years ago were really not like the household pets that we have now. There were no Wookiees or Ashers among them. And so they were scavengers. And so the term is often used to speak of low-life, contemptible scum throughout the Torah and prophets. Anyway, so let's start at the beginning here. It is your desire and it is my desire and your will, my choice and yours, to deliver my soul, to snatch away and save my soul. Natsal, which means to deliver, to snatch away, to save. Nefesh, soul, and then anemai. So this is can be viewed from a number of different perspectives. One is Dowd's soul was delivered in year 4000 33 CE for the express purpose of snatching away our guilt and saving us as a result of removing our guilt. So this is the process that would take place on Matzah, and we have transitioned from speaking of Dowd's physical body, his bashar, to his nefesh soul as it relates now to delivering our guilt, to the process of salvation and snatching away. That's the primary meaning. The secondary meaning is that God's not going to allow Dowd's nefesh soul to reside in Sheol any longer than the duration of Matzah. So that's the second part of it. So they both decided they're going to do this, that Dowd's soul is going to save, it's going to be used to snatch away our guilt and deliver it unto Sheol, that's the plan. And they are both of the conviction that the shortest period of time necessary to fulfill the Moed Mikre, that's the limit of the time that father and son will be apart. And we've talked about this briefly in the past. It is highly likely, but we're not told this. I'm just now projecting based upon Yahweh and Dowd, that when Dowd volunteered to do this, he knew that because he witnessed it, he knew that his death the death of his body would be gruesome. He's happy to dispose of the body, spending what was really an afternoon, probably 6 hours of torment between the whips and the crucifixion. That 6 hours was going to be antagonizing. Mm-hmm. I'm of the conviction that right with the first stripe, that Yahweh anesthetized Dowd's body. We don't need to be told that. We aren't told that. I am of that conviction because I know Yahweh can, and I know Yahweh loves Dowd more than anyone else. And since Yahweh had to acquiesce to Dowd's wishes, serving as the Passover lamb, and then on Matzah, carrying our guilt into Sheol to perfect us, was Dowd's choice. He figured it out reading the Torah and listening to the prophetic interactions to him through Nathan, that he was able to figure out that this is his opportunity and his responsibility. And after he determined it, he also recognized that it was the right choice for him and for his people. But still, you have to convince the big guy that it's the right call, because he loves Dowd more than any other. And the idea of Dowd being separated into Sheol even for a day, and him being beaten by the beast of Rome and crucified, tortured by them, isn't a pretty picture. And so father and son have to agree on this. And I think that once they did, Yahweh said, yeah, I can anesthetize the pain, and the time in Matzah, well, it will be fully 24 hours from the perspective of Earth, from sunset to, this would be a sunset on a Friday evening through through sunset on that Saturday evening in 33 CE. That 24-hour period, because he's going into what Yahweh describes as a black hole, where time is infinite, and yet there is no escape, and there is no light. It's describing a black hole. And in an environment like that, with great speed, the velocity of a vast hole is beyond comprehension. And great gravity, great mass, time would slow. And if time slows for him and stays at the same speed for us, you do the math, and it's depending on the size of the black hole that Sheol is, it could have been seconds from Dowd's perspective. Still 24 hours from perspective of Earth. From Yahweh's perspective, because he is purely spiritual and can manage his perspective and experience in time however he wishes, it could have also been a second. So for those that would say, there's no way that a lovable God would do this to his son, you have to think it through. And that's the reason why I'm having this discussion, is that Yahweh's not doing this to Dowd. Dowd chose it. I've shared in the past how Dowd came to figure out that this was the right thing for him to decide. And it all begins with Abraham and Yishak on Mount Moriah, exactly 4,000 years prior to, 2,000 years prior to this event, 40 Yobel. And he listened to, reading the Torah, that interaction between Yahweh and Abraham, whose name means merciful father, and Yishak, laughter. And Yahweh's calling Yishak Abraham's one and only beloved son. And Abraham means merciful father. And then Yahweh engages and says, no, you're not going to take your son's life, the son that you love, your only son. I'm going to provide the lamb. And who is Yahweh's one and only beloved son?
Yeah,
Dowd, of course. Yeah.
And Dowd, of course, figured that out. And it was obvious to him that this is my job. I am that lamb. When I figured it out, if I can figure it out, he figured it out. And of course, you have all of the statements in 2 Samuel 7 that were delivered by Nathan to Dowd about Dowd coming back again as the King of Kings, and of Dowd specifically being called the Son of God by God. And by this time, Dowd also would have written the first two Mizmor, where it's very clear that Dowd is the Son of God. So he put it together, and then he realized that Moshe, who was a man of exemplary character, a man who was properly prepared for the mission, having lived within the religious and political confines and milieu of Mitzrayim under the Pharaoh Tutmosis, as it turns out to be. Tutmosis the Great, not so great in my view. Tutmosis deprived of his firstborn son, also interesting, that he left all of that. He rejected it, actually risked his life to diminish its influence, and then left all of that. But that's what made Moshe such an exceptional choice for Yahweh to use. And so we have this story that is having Moshe from that point on tell us explicitly what Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurym represent, and we witness it carried out in the lives of the children of Israel as they lived as the firstborn children died. Their firstborn lived, and the firstborn all around them died. Shouldn't firstborn have been a clue that when Yahweh was going to turn to Passover, it's going to be with his firstborn?
Firstborn, yeah.
But so here is Dowd. He's looking at the qualifications of Moshe, and they don't get any better. Moshe is far more qualified for the Matsah Exodus than Dowd ever was as a shepherd for being king of Israel. So he sees a man that's far more mature, far more disciplined. Moshe and Dowd both had an emotional side, but Dowd's was more flamboyant and perfectly prepared for the job, more so than Dowd. And yet, he was a virtual zero trying to deal with the children of Israel. I mean, they were horrible. And every time they had their meltdown, Moshe, would have to run to Yahweh and say, "You got to fix this for me." And Dowd saying, "Look at my mess. I mean, my own son led a massive rebellion against me. The king that my people wanted wants to kill me." I mean, this is a tough spot, and he knows that he made a lot of bad choices. One of the bad choices, sending his most honorable man out to fight a battle that didn't need to be fought, thinking he might be killed so he could steal his wife.
And pretty low.
Yeah, that was not a good move. Yahweh was not amused in the least with that. Didn't care that was Dowd's 8th wife. That didn't matter at all. Or that he already had 10 concubines. That didn't matter at all. It was just the way that he went about the 18th of them. And one time Yahweh gave Dowd 3 different choices. These are the 3 things. And here's the consequences. And Dowd chose poorly. He made the worst possible choice. Another time he sent folks out for a cup of water from Bethlehem because he liked the taste of it better. I would say no. So Dowd knows he's got issues, as they say. and yet Yahweh wants Dowd to be king of all Yisrael forevermore.
Forever, yeah.
That's a tough damn job, particularly with Israelis, even though he gets the pick of the litter. So Dowd's realizing that unless something is dramatic, I got no choice. I got no chance to be able to pull this off. Moshe couldn't pull it off, and I'm no Moshe as it comes to earning the respect of my people. And so that's why Dowd chose to do this. I give up 2 days, 2 horrible 2 days, but I will earn the respect of my people and be able to lead them forevermore, because 100% of those who I'm going to be leading are only there because I did this for them.
Mm-hmm.
They're brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, of course, knew he'd figure it out. And that he'd have the character to see it through. And that he could even write about it and then still endure it. And he did all those things. Makes Dowd exceptional. But it's important that you know the whole story. This is how Dowd figured out that he needed to do it. This is how Dowd determined that it was appropriate for him to do it, that it was in everyone's best interest for him to do it. And it's how Yahweh knew that it was the right call, and why symbolically this was powerful, most important 3 days in human history. And yet physical agony with the blows to the physical body, I think, were somewhat mitigated. And I think that the set-apart spirit was the shield, carried Dowd and our guilt into Sheol, shielded Dowd while he was there, and then removed Dowd from Sheol and returned him back to Yahweh between the end of Matsah and the beginning of Pesach, or Bikurym. And so that's the process. That is what we're witnessing here. So it is my desire and your will, my choice and yours, to deliver my soul, then to snatch away and save with my soul from the horror, the heat, desolation, and ruin. Well, that's what a black hole is going to be. Horrible, exceedingly hot, desolate, and ruinous. And by the way, all of that is from the very place that God chose to reveal the way to eternal life. You know what the word is? All that comes
Cherub.
Torab, yeah. Torab. Torab is the mountain of God.
Mm-hmm.
And it is from this lifeless, desolate summit that Yahweh first drew Moshe's attention and introduced himself to us. That name that you just heard, Yahweh revealed his name to Moshe in this very place in Chorab. Lifeless. And this sharp crag that's at the top of it, this dividing line between life and death. And so it is, by contrast, in this terribly lifeless place that this is where Yahweh revealed the means to life.
Yeah.
From the horror, the heat, the desolation, and ruin. My unique position as son and precious life as the firstborn child. Yeah, kid, but we're going to go into what religious translators have rendered yeah, kid.
Pretty sick.
It
Wow.
is.
Yeah,
It's a
really
wow.
good.
Yeah, it's a wow. You've been with me there before, so you know where we're going.
Mhm.
But Yakid is a word that speaks of the birth of a child. And it would be a unique, a blessed, precious life of the firstborn child, the most important of all children to you. And so my unique position as son, because it's masculine, and precious life is the firstborn child. And that is Dowd. Dowd is the only one who qualifies in that. Dowd is, according to the 89th Mizmor, he is Yahweh's Bikur, firstborn. And according to Dowd's name, he is beloved. That's what the name means. From the influence of, and this is from Caleb, we've already heard from our Caleb, and we know that is a yelper. The only aspect of the Messiah and the King deployed during the fulfillment of Chag Matzah was Dowd's nefesh soul. It would be snatched out of Sheol at the end, having snatched our guilt away from us, liberated, and having saved us. It's returned to Yahweh by the Ruach. And that is why we read that the Ruach is being described as Ihayuth in the previous statement. Remember that? Ihayuth meaning that the Spirit is helpful. The Spirit is useful. Doesn't say the Spirit is God. It doesn't say, well, certainly doesn't say the Spirit is mom, as we have on the traitorous cult that has broken away. Boy, have they ever gone into devilish mode. I'm surprised as to how despicable they have become, but more on them on another program. It turns out they earned both Yahweh's and his son's Dowd's disgust, and it's a really bad idea to upset.
Yeah.
Father and son here, in this case, Yahweh and Dowd. And oh my, man, some of the things that we're going to hear Yahweh say about them prophetically and Dowd say about them, well, to be associated with them, you have to be, well, so cavalier about your soul, you don't care where it spends eternity. Because I'll guarantee you one thing: heaven is not big enough for us to share it with them, and we will not. By rescuing Dowd's consciousness, Bikurym was fulfilled, and the firstborn son of God would lead the way home for Bikurym, firstborn children, so that we could all follow. It is apparent that these abased yelpers who hounded Dowd during Pesach as he was being flailed alive were demonic, and they were anticipated in Sheol. Although there is another possibility. The Hebrew word for dog is koleb, as we've mentioned. And as a compound of kol, it means all, and leb, heart. And it suggests that those who were being so abusive, barking and snipping at the Messiah, are all feelers, not thinkers, religious rather than rational. They were all heart and no head. Now, there is another crime which must be exposed. The Masoretes vocalized the textual consonants CHRB as chereb rather than choreb. Same exact four letters, actually 3 letters in Hebrew, the CH, the Rosh, and the Bayat. But that's the problem with the rabbis, is that they applied diacritical marks where they were not needed, because there are 5 vowels amongst the 22 letters in the Hebrew language. But if you're going to do a translation of Yahweh's testimony, one of the very first things you have to do is you have to look past the diacritical markings and come up with all words that are written the same way in the text. In this case, the CH, the R, and the B. So the former is a knife, it's a dagger, it's a sword, an axe, or a chisel. Now, since Dowd's Passover ordeal included whipping, as he described it, they ripped the skin off of his body, and the piercing torment of crucifixion, which is stunning, by the way, for everyone who is listening, that Dowd told us that he was going to be crucified as the Passover lamb 1,000 years before he endured it, and 700 years before Rome invented crucifixion with nails. And of course, with Dowd having told us that he was going to fulfill Passover by being crucified, and his depictions of crucifixion are palpable. Even Yahweh chimes in, and Zechariah 12, he says, "I'm returning with the one that you pierced." And it speaks of these nails being driven into his wrists and his feet, and it's explicit, and talks even how
Die internally.
medically, how you would die of crucifixion, of how you would drown while being incredibly thirsty, because all the fluids flow into your lungs because you can't stretch your diaphragm the way that you're hanging, and that you would ultimately suffocate, so there'd be you're dying of your muscles die of oxygen starvation. And it explains all the details of exactly how crucifixion kills 700 years before crucifixion was even invented.
Yeah.
So 1,000 years before Dowd would endure it. And the very fact that he says, "I'm going to be crucified in this way," it not only destroys Judaism, it destroys Christianity.
Of course it did. Yeah.
Yeah, there can be no Jesus Christ. The moment you understand that Dowd did this, and that he wrote about it in first person as a prophet, vividly describing his crucifixion, then you know for certain there can be no Christian cross, no Christianity, no Jesus, no Mr. Christ, no Easter, of course, none of it. No Good Friday, none of it. It's all a complete lie. Nothing but identity theft and both character assassination and a crude counterfeit. powerful when you think of the implications of this.
Yes.
So Dowd's Passover deal did not include a sword, an axe, a chisel, a knife, or a dagger. And so if you put it in here, the prophetic passage is changed to represent a plea to be spared from cutting implements. Dowd's prophetic credentials and subsequent sacrifice would be disqualified because, well, it would not have been consistent with his own prophecy about how he would serve as the Lamb of God. Now, not knowing any better, the politically motivated clerics who prepared the King James Version perpetuated the same mistake. Then, since the ASV, NIV, NKJV, and NASB are more revisions than translations, they all replicated the same order. The King James Version published, "Deliver my soul from the sword, my darling from the power of the dog."
Wow.
They came up with "my darling" by including a Yaked, only child, which was scribed after Caleb, evil yelpers, rather than making it part of the next statement. The New American Standard Bible, which claims to be literal, reads, "Deliver my soul from the sword, my only life from the power of the dog." You all have read the story of the first Passover, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was there any dogs part of that story?
No.
No, sure.
No.
Is there any place where Dowd, the mighty king of Yisrael, the one who defended Yisrael 66 times in battle, never lost a battle, is there any place where he says, "Oh my God, this dog is going to kill me"?
Right.
Was
Didn't
the
have a
Torah
sheepdog.
written to save our souls from dogs?
No.
No.
I mean, how could they be that stupid?
You just are.
The New Living Translation, which is a pathetic paraphrase, and it's something that throughout the 5 volumes of Christianity I include because for
It's just
comical
fun.
reasons.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's
Gotta
the
be
New Living Translation. How does the translation live, by the way? I guess the same way Christmas and Easter live, right?
Mm.
in
Mine's
your heart.
Yep. The New Living Translation
Yep.
decided to ignore nefesh soul. No, we don't want to deal with a nefesh soul because that
No.
would be too accurate and might
Yeah.
inspire some people to actually think of what really was taking place on Matzah. So we don't want to do that. We'll get rid of nefesh soul, and which is a rather important part of the statement. In fact, it was the most important part of the statement. It just says, "Save me from the sword, my precious life from these dogs." Okay. Well, correctly rendered, the passage is prophetically and historically accurate, informative and important. The set-apart spirit was tasked with the responsibility of retrieving Dowd's soul from the desolate lifelessness of Sheol, rescuing him from its horrible heat, as well as that which is really part and parcel of the event horizon, this velocity and kind of ripping nature of a black hole. And it's a beautiful description of a black hole when you render it correctly. Therefore, long before we were introduced to the concept of a black hole, we find some of its attributes depicted right here in the text. It's a horrible and ruinous place of complete destruction, subject to intense heat. It's interesting, too, is that, the laws of physics claim that energy cannot be destroyed.
Mhm.
Neither matter nor energy can be destroyed. The conservation of energy and matter. But Stephen Hawking was convinced that indeed it can.
Mhm.
And, he was repudiated, and just everybody had a conniption fit over it because the purists said, no, it can't happen. And, and now most people think, it's, we haven't a
Dissipate,
clue what
yeah.
happens in a black hole, but it sure seems to be the most reasonable conclusion. Yahweh is really saying here, matter can be destroyed. I'm going to side with Yahweh on this. Therefore, long before we're introduced to it, we find these attributes, and collectively, we also experience even a more detailed experience or presentation of what Dowd experienced, because he's the only person, by the way, in all of human history that has entered and exited a black hole and can tell us about it. He is the lone eyewitness. You don't have to have Interstellar. I don't know if you all saw the movie where they went through a black hole. That's the whole Star Trek, Star Wars thing. Warp speed, and we're all going to have wormholes in space. No, just not physically possible. If you go into one of those, you ain't ever going to come out. So Dowd is the lone exception, but Yahweh cheated in his case. He protected him the whole time with his Ruach, and so they had the whole thing collectively planned. And since Sheol exists as a prison that was created by Yahweh for Hasatan and the overtly political and religious and militant, you can be assured that Yahweh has the key. So collectively, this is the who, the when, the how, the why behind the fulfillment of the first three Mikra. Yahweh, Dowd, and the set-apart spirit were in one accord, all committed to establishing the covenant family, and they knew that our king would not be incarcerated any longer than was necessary. You want to liberate and save me, even save through and rescue through me. It is your, the whoop whoop gallery there.
Yeah.
Unlike the Wookiee, has a microphone, and they can
Chime in.
put it right up their mic and mouth and can contribute to this show. I don't know if we have the capability of having 3 boxes lined up here, but we could either feature Leah, Rich, or Wookiee and the third box down.
Wookiee can have my box.
By the way, you guys, there was a miracle here. We have a miracle. You know what the miracle is? You guys switched places.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So Captain Kirk is now over.
I've never had this honor before.
You could pat him on the head down there. Now all we need. Oh, I took down the camera because we were working in this corner today, so we can't capture the layout, the Wookiee or the Rich, because we did take down the camera. Credit to Rich though. He did get my. I had an R8 or an R7. I got all my other cameras, professional camcorders, and my Canon EOS R8, all to cooperate, and that's why we've been bringing this show to you in 3 different places. But that R7, it was as hard-headed and recalcitrant as a Israeli on an Exodus. So,
welcome to the Yasa.
yeah, but he liberated it. So we may want him to do this job, since he can talk to wonky cameras.
Oh yeah.
So you want to liberate and save through me, to rescue and deliver me, and to not only release me, but to redeem through me. This is the Hiphil imperative, second person, masculine singular. Now, in this particular case, Dowd didn't chime in with a cohortative, which would have meant, I also want the same thing. But at this point, it really doesn't matter, because Dowd's already volunteered to do this, and now he's just acknowledging that Yahweh has agreed, and he is going to make this possible. Because the thing that's really important here is to recognize that Dowd getting whipped by the Romans, getting tortured through crucifixion on Passover, and then having his soul go into Sheol with our guilt is just nothing but a horrible, macabre scene unless Yahweh is doing something with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things I was always bothered by Christians. And they, of course, have no answer for this. What's the purpose of your God dying on a cross?
Right.
What's the gain there? How does that do anything for anybody? And unless you just make shit up. Right?
Right.
Doesn't do anything for anybody. You don't have a reason for it. With Passover, with unyeasted bread, and with firstborn children, there's a very specific purpose, history, and prophetic series of declarations regarding them. And so by fulfilling them, Yahweh can deliver on his promises. And therefore, Dowd is the one who fulfilled those specific promises. I think we're going to get a wook back here with Mr. Monkey. So we might get him in the scene before long. We'll see. He is right now he's adoring Leah. He gets more cuddle time with Leah, I think, these days than I do. So the wook, I'm jealous there, pal.
Welcome to the real world.
That's funny. All right. No, I'm not complaining. My wife was remarkably loving. So you want to liberate and save me, to rescue and deliver through me out of the mouth of the fearsome and destructive beast, this predator, the vicious one who hunts and savages his prey, and from the horns of the flashing light that has risen on high. You have answered me during my affliction. Wow. Well, there's a lot there. This is Mizmor Song, Psalm 22:21. Now it's 22:22. Oh, you want my iced tea? There you go. I'm really easy. You want me to pour you some more so it's easy for you to drink? There you go. You know, with dogs today, rather than them trying to, I guess the original thing is they were to make your life more enjoyable. The Wookiee has figured out that we live for the Wook.
That's right.
Yes. All right. Well, there goes the Wook. Okay. Well, thank you, Wook. All right. So, coming up here from the top, this first verb is yasha. Yasha is the Hebrew word for salvation. It is the Hebrew word for you want to deliver. So it speaks of deliverance, and it's often deliverance from harm's way, deliver from something that would hurt me. Like, for example, our guilt would keep us out of Shamayim. So you want to deliver me to safety, and you want me to deliver this result. Deliver the guilt that is dangerous into Sheol. You want to liberate. God is not a lord, because lords want to lord over, to control, and to own as masters. And Yahweh is a liberator. He hates the caste system of economics. He despises tyrannical big government. He hates the control mechanism of religion. Yahweh's a liberator, first and foremost. So Yasha means to liberate. And so to save, to deliver, to liberate, to emancipate, to release, and to redeem are all meanings of Yatsah. It is the S word of Hebrew, Savior, salvation. So if you're looking for a Savior, then based upon this sentence, you got two choices, and those two choices are really one choice, Yahweh or Dowd, and the answer really is yes, Yahweh and Dowd.
Yeah.
So this is the mission. This is the purpose of what his soul is doing at this moment. Soul is liberating, saving, delivering, and Yahweh is doing all of those things through Dowd. And that is why it was written in the Hiphil stem. In the Hiphil stem, the subject, which is me, Dowd, becomes an understudy the subject is Yahweh, being you, and the object is me, Dowd. And so with the Hiphil stem, that means that the subject makes the object, Yahweh makes Dowd an understudy, such that they engage in the same result, which is the action of the verb. So in this case, what you have is Yahweh causing Dowd to save. So Yahweh delivers by enabling Dowd to save. That would be the Hiphil stem. You've done your grammar there, Kirk. Would you?
Yeah, I
Of the
let me tell you what I do. I've got what she wrote over on one side of my computer. On the other side of the computer, I've got an interlineary. And then, of course, I have all my cheat sheets, which have all the hippos and the cohorts and everything, so I can follow along because it tells me I'm checking you. I'm not trying to really check you because I know I've already done this, but there it is. So if you want to follow along and see where all this comes from, it's there. And you're using the Dead Sea Scrolls and so wow, it's fun.
Yeah, before too long, I've got some arms coming that's going to enable me when Wook's not here to put a book right here and a camera that's going to be on that book. And I'm going to be able to have our lovely producer go to the book camera, and you'll be able to read right along and see the place where we indicate that the Hiphil imperative is written here because it's important. And this is a very different kind, too, of translation, the kind that we're talking about here, which I call an amplified translation. Amplified, there is a translation called the Amplified that's been around for many, many decades, but it has nothing in common with what I'm doing here. All they do is use more words and no more accurate, no more revealing. They just throw a few more words in and they call it amplified. The format that I invented was that I was going to put the most accurate and complete rendering of the verb that is possible based upon the stems, the Hiphil in this case, the moods, the imperative in this case, the person, first, second, or third person, masculine or singular, second person, masculine, singular in this case, and second person would be you, Yahweh, masculine singular, because I'm sorry, Mother Goddess cult. I'm not sorry at all, but Mother Goddess cult, Yahweh is masculine singular.
Very good.
Girl, he is masculine singular. I'm okay.
Oh, Wookie. Scared Wookie.
Thank you, Wook. All right, so you want to liberate and save through me. This particular translation style that I invented, that, by the way, the Mother Goddess cult thinks there's no problem on their part, just ripping it. Yeah. Total and complete counterfeit, copyright infringement, you name it. I did something that no one in all of human history has done, and they've copied.
Yeah. Get away with it.
Passing themselves off as if they were me. It is reprehensible. And what I did is, after I put in the bold, which is the crux of what is being conveyed, I put the word, whether it's a verb or a noun, whether there's it's attached with pronouns or conjunctions or any of these kinds of figures of speech, I put the most generative form of the word inside of the parenthetical in a italicized format, so that you can read right over it if you wish to. But if you want to linger here and you want to learn the grammar and the vocabulary of Hebrew, you can. So you can see that Yatsah is the word that carries this message. This is about liberation. This is about salvation. This is about deliverance. And you can build your understanding of the terms that Yahweh uses to paint this portrait of his relationship with us. And Yatsah is one of those important terms. And Ani is the Hebrew pronoun for me, myself, I. And I put that in italics. And then I have a long dash. And then I have an amplified further explanation of that. In this case, it is your will to release me, sparing and redeeming me, and redeeming through me. And then in another parenthetical, the stem, the hiphil in this case, the mood, the imperative in this case, and the person, second person, masculine, singular. No one has ever done anything that's even remotely like this before.
Can I add a remark?
So I invented this process, and they just flat out stole it. But stealing is a very religious thing to do. That's that's how Christianity was created. That's how Judaism was created. That's how Islam was created. Stealing is what the religious do, and Yahweh doesn't much like it. Stealing is what caused Jesus Christ to exist. Without stealing, there is no Jesus Christ. Without stealing, there is no mommy goddess cult. So, out of the mouth of the fearsome and destructive beast, words matter. Yes, words matter. And in this particular case, it's the words of this destructive beast, the Aryeh, this fierce predator. Now, as we move down, and by the way, Aryeh can also be lion. And the reason that that's important is that Yahweh uses words such that you have to understand their context as to what he is trying to convey. And Dowd can be the Lion of Judah. It's not Aryeh when he's referred to that way, but this whole interplay between good and bad, between the spirit of Yahweh and the spirit of Hasatan, there are shadings, dark and light, all the way through. And
connotation.
One of the things, Kirk, that you became expert at and you invented, that is really to your credit. No one had conceived this prior to you. It's really a brilliant find. And what you noticed is that you could tell whether a word was mostly negative or mostly positive based upon the lean of the letters.
Yes.
And that if a letter leaned to one of the four letters in Yahweh's name, and it's really only three because one's repeated. So if a letter leaned toward or looked toward a letter in Yahweh's name, then the word was almost universally positive. But if those letters leaned away from or looked away from Yahweh's name, the word was negative. And 3/4 of the letters in the Hebrew alphabet lean in their original form. They are one-sided. They move from one direction to another. You just start with a Aleph. The Aleph, which is a ram's head, is pointed from right to left, looking to the left, the direction that Hebrew reads. So the ram that represents both Father and God and Dowd, all three, is looking in the direction that the words lead us. I began this whole process. I'm going to go where the words lead.
Yes.
The Aleph does that, doesn't it? It goes, points us in the direction. That's the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet. That's a heck of an insight. That first letter that also represents El, God, and Ab, Father, the Aleph, leans in the direction the words read. And Bayeth, home, is another one that's a floor plan of a home, but there's only an opening on one side. And guess what side it's on? The side going to the left, which again is the direction that you'd want to read the Hebrew words. And so that's one of the things that you discovered, that you want to understand the nature of a Hebrew word. Look which direction the letters are facing, and if there is a yod, a hey, or a wah in the word, and the letters look away from or lean away from the letters in Yahweh's name, the word is negative, and if they lean towards it, the letters are positive.
So what was the reason they changed the letters?
Oh, the letters in Yahweh's name?
No, the letters in period. Why did they change the alphabet? I mean, I know they were in Babylon. That's why.
Yes.
But,
Oh, yeah, they did. The Babylonian
but-
version of the block letters,
Yeah.
and they now have a contemporary version of the block letter. What's interesting is that the rabbis claim, oh, there's no vowels in Hebrew, so we had to add them, and therefore nobody really knows
But Yahweh
Yahweh's
couldn't
name because
talk.
there's no vowels in Hebrew. Yeah, it's utter nonsense. And all they say that is to justify their existence with the Masoretic text, which speaks of the vowel pointing. The fact is, there's 5 vowels in the Hebrew language. 3 of the letters, the 3 of the 4 letters in Yahweh's name, happen to all be vowels, and so they're exceedingly easy to pronounce. And so now that Hebrew has a new variation of their alphabet, modern Hebrew, if you read, there's no vowel point in it. It's just same 22 letters, but they know which ones are the vowels. So there you go. All right, so it says, from the horns of the flashing light that has risen on high. Keren Ra'am. Have you at any place seen a Keren? Does that word ring a bell to either of you?
Yeah, I think Abraham and Yitzhak. I think they saw that. Yeah.
Yep. What they saw was the Passover lamb. They saw the Passover lamb, and it was caught. It's by its horns. Its keren were caught in the thicket. That's how the Passover lamb, this ram, became available to serve, with Yahweh providing the lamb for Passover. All right? So it was the keren, the horns of that ram. Now, keren, the horns, is symbolic of what in Hebrew? Kingship, right?
Trumpet.
Kings, the crown.
Oh, well,
So
crown. Yeah, of course,
you're a king. You're wearing the keren, and keren doesn't primarily mean horns. It primarily means flashing or radiating light, which of course speaks of what Dowd's going to do. He's going to come back as brilliant as the sun. So this is a word that takes us back to the dress rehearsal from in Bereshith in Genesis, the first book of the Torah, when we're experiencing this exact same event and the same place that Pesach was fulfilled by Dowd. Here we now have the king, the keren, the one that would be wearing the keren of Yahweh, representing the keren that was caught in the thicket in exactly the same place, exactly 40 Yobel.
40.
Removed
Can't
from
make this stuff up. This is great.
Yep, 1968 BCE versus 33 CE. That's the beauty of doing, by the way, amplified translations, and then thinking about what it is that you have come to understand. By the way, in the counterfeit version, which they made their books look just like mine, they went from the beehive because the hornet's nest, because Yahweh scolded them for being hornets, and they copied the very thing that I announced that Yahweh had asked us to start conveying his name with the menorah. So they also have a stylized modern menorah that they switched to. Would talk about disgusting. I mean, wearing somebody else's skin, it's just reprehensible. Anyway, they have these translations. They even put my name on some of them, and then they changed the translations where they change Yahweh's name.
I know, I saw that.
Oh,
Wow. Tell me, yeah, shoot yourself.
oh my. Yeah, they've now at least I know why Yahweh was so insistent on having the prophecies, condemning them, and me sharing them with you, which we will get into more detail as we move out of our celebration of this glorious week. So from the horns of the flashing light that has risen on high. This is, again, like so many things that Yahweh has conveyed. Oh, I was going to say they have no commentary. So all these insights that I'm sharing with you, they got none. I got none. So I don't do that part. But anyway,
They have no voice.
they
No
got no,
cold.
yeah, they got, well, what they don't have any is a chakma,
Mhm.
which is the word that got them in all the trouble because they thought the chakma was spirit mom. They got no chakma.
No chocolate.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's Rich has been aggressive in pursuing them for copyright infringement. I've got other things to do, but I am going to call them out because what they're doing is reprehensible at a time where Yahweh, you're going back to the same period, fellas, where Yahweh's first prophetic portrait of what this evil psychotic woman would do is represented by Miriam. And
Mhm.
the whole episode is identical. And there's no reason whatsoever for that episode to appear in the Torah apart from being prophetic for what we have experienced. But when you recognize Yahweh's response, when somebody says, but we also, or I also speak for God, oh, it's the angriest, really. We see Yahweh in the entirety of the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. He is never that angry. He's actually right at the point of, in fact, he says, even if your father spit in your face, still strike you with leprosy and send you out away from this community.
Mhm.
Wow.
Queen of the Dowd.
I can assure you, Yah was not happy. But you ain't saying nothing until you see what Dowd has to say. So this Koren here, a Ra'am, is a double meaning as well. And I understand there's some of you who might say, "Yeah, guys, you're getting so many details here. You're gonna tell this story, or you're gonna stay here on one sentence forever." But if you know Yahweh,
It's in the
Dowd,
details.
Oh, yes.
if you know their style, this is their style.
Mhm.
They put in all of these clues for us to find it, and for us to share them, for us to think about it. And it's only when you put these pieces together and begin to analyze them and make the comparisons, make the connections necessary to understand that the word of God comes alive. And so here is just one example, Koren Ra'am. It's double-sided. Dowd is the Koren that was caught in the thickets on Mount Moriah exactly 40 Yobel before he wore the crown of thickets on his head as a Koren, and he's the one risen on high. But also there is this other nefarious fellow that would be the fearsome and destructive beast, right?
Mhm.
And he's very flashy. This depiction of Satan as this horned dude with the spiky tail and looking a little bit goatish and red and ugly and fearsome. That's not how he looks at all.
Halal.
Now he kind of looks like a snake, but that was his own problem. He was a Karub.
Mhm.
You want to see a Karub, but look at the winged spirits that serve as the right and left arm and the backrest of the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
These are Karub. Beautiful. They're essentially beings comprised of light. So this is what Hasatan is, this flashy being that wants to rise on high and be worshipped as if he were God. He is the God of religion. He is the Hashem and the Adonai of Judaism. He is the Jesus Christ and Lord of Christianity. He is most certainly the Allah of Islam.
Yeah.
So it's both. And so this final statement of 22:21 or 22:22, if you're in the GPS Tanakh, you have answered me during my affliction. Well, Anah is another one of these great words. And there's so much of Yah's testimony that you will experience it as you live it. Ana is the verb that is part and parcel of the Moed Mikre.
Mhm.
Yahweh, Mikre means from Kara, means that God is issuing an invitation or a summons, depending on your perspective, to be called out of this world, therefore away from religion and politics, and to meet with him and be welcomed by him. That is the purpose of Mikra. And they're also called Moeds, which is the eternal witness to the restoring testimony. So we have these invitations. What do you do when somebody offers you an invitation?
I know.
RSVP.
You respond. RSVP.
You respond.
Response. Yeah.
That's Ana. So Yahweh, in offering this, the Mikra invitations to Pesach, Matsah Bikurym, encourages us to Ana respond. RSVP. Okay, God, thanks for the invitation. I'll meet you there
Be there.
on Pesach, Matsah Bikurym.
Right.
Unlike
Come
Jews,
very early.
we'll only meet him there on Pesach, misstated as a day of liberation as opposed to the day of life, and not even bother to answer the other two invitations. And in fact, they don't answer any one of the remaining invitations, because even the one that they still acknowledge, because they don't acknowledge Shabuah, they don't acknowledge Teruah, is Yom Kippurim, and they've turned it into the day of twirling chickens and basing their souls while torturing chickens. There you go. Yahweh says, answer me. And so Dowd is projecting this on Yahweh, saying, you're asking us to answer you during the Mikre, but you have me fulfilling the Mikre. Therefore, now it's your turn. You don't ever ask us to do something, God, you're not willing to do. Therefore, you answer me. Now, that's the positive side of Ana, correct?
Mhm.
That's the primary meaning of Ana, to answer, to respond.
Yes.
But there is a dark side of Ana, which is how rabbis turn the day of reconciliation, which is a very positive thing. You reconcile a relationship, that's the purpose of the day of reconciliation, Yom Kippurim. And it's plural, not Yom Kippur. It's always Yom Kippurim, because there are two relationships being reconciled on Yom Kippurim. They are the relationship between Yisrael and Yehudim, and the relationship between God's people and God himself, as well as really between Yisrael and Dowd.
Mhm.
So lots of reconciliation here. And so the fourth, fifth, sixth-ish definition of Ana is to afflict. And so answer during my affliction, you can use both in this particular case, because the word can convey both words. And in this particular case, you have a letter in Yahweh's name in the beginning and in the end. And so the nun, which would look to the left, looks away from one and looks towards the other, which gives this word this dark and light side. So this is just another insight that is tying this in with the Moed Mikre. So this is our second encounter with this fearsome beast, but this time we learn even more about him. He is comprised of light and yet is horned and flashy. He seeks a degree of adulation only at the highest status would bring. And therefore, this beast that Dowd is saying, I want to be relieved from, is Hasatan. But it's also Dowd saying that what Hasatan is trying to do is emulate Dowd. He's trying to wear Dowd like a second skin. That's just like Jesus Christ and
Right.
Dowd. It's like Dowd and Bar Kokhba. It's like the Mommy Dearest cult and me.
Queen of the Down.
Very, very common. When you have no creativity, you got
Yeah.
nothing to offer, you counterfeit somebody else, you wear someone else. This is the wolf in sheep's clothing that is Paul pretending to be part of the flock. That's what this is. Hasatan. wearing Dowd. Taking this one step further, while Ariah is often translated lion, as I shared with you, it is clearly symbolic in this refrain. This vicious predator maims its prey. Also telling, Ariah forms the basis of Aridatha. And Aridatha is a name of Babylonian origin, which identifies the founder of the Babylonian mystery religion. So we should not be surprised then that the most common symbol for Babylon's god was a
Lion.
winged lion.
Yep.
Correct. The gates of Babylon were adorned with them. Here he's inspiring Dowd. So the combination of Yahweh and Dowd, very, very clever writers. They are really good at their craft. The only one I think that comes anywhere close to Yahweh and Dowd would be Yashaya, my buddy. Yashaya is an exceedingly skilled orator and writer. But I tell you what, you're gonna share your words in the context of what Yahweh and Moshe conveyed in writing and orally. Debadim is the written account of what Moshe said when Yahweh used Moshe's mouth as if it were his own. And Debadim is, Barashith is dictation from Yahweh to Moshe. But you're gonna put your words to help illustrate and explain Moshe, what Yahweh revealed through Moshe, what he revealed through Dowd, what he revealed through Yashaya. You better have your A game, because these fellas, they knew what they're talking about. Yeah. So Dowd uses Ariah in the 7th Mizmor. He uses it as a synonym for Satan's alliance with Shaul, and especially fearsome beast. He wrote, Yahweh my God, in you I find a trusted and safe place. With you, delivering me from my pretentious pursuers, especially the boisterous, who are verbally contentious against me. You are preserving me for a later time. Mizmor 7:1. Or otherwise, a vicious beast in search of prey, Ariah, he, to satiate his own cravings, will rip apart my soul, snatch it away and shredding it without sparing it. Mizmor 7:2. Well, this is exactly what happens in the Christian New Testament in both Peter's and Paul's first public address. They do this very thing to Dowd. It's prophetic.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to ward off this beast, we can rely on Yahweh's Anah testimony. His response provides the answer. Since many Hebrew words have, as we've been sharing, a dark and a light side, and it's always worth considering an entirely different approach to the concluding statement of Mizmor, Psalm 22:21. And this reads, and so, from the brilliant light of this summit, which lifts on high, you have answered me during my affliction. So you have responded during my distress. Call perfect. Mizmor Song 22, 21 or 22 on the JPS. So I prefer actually this rendering because it not only addresses the location where this occurred, which would be Mount Moriah. It speaks at both cases, by the way, the dress rehearsal and the fulfillment, and where Dowd is going to return, Mount Moriah, where the Temple Mount is. I saw today the first video. I've been looking for one of these where the Dome of the Rock in Alaska, Moscow, I don't know if you saw. I posted them on Facebook. Unfortunately, you have to mute it because they're singing Adonai, and the music's just horrible. And they orient the temple to the south, overlooking the temple of Dowd. It doesn't orient to the south. It orients to the east, towards the sunrise, not to the sunset. It's embracing the light of a new day. So, but anyway, they do have the dome of the hoofy print go poof, and they have a temple there. They don't know it's going to be made with light, and they saying, when Matsah comes. And so I wrote them a really nice response. We'll see how many Jews like it. Boy, did the anti-Semites, though, come out of the woodwork today for me on X. Whew. People do not like it when you speak on behalf of Israel. I'll tell you that. That is, if you want to be popular on X, don't do what I do. I would encourage you to do what I do, which is speak on behalf of Israel. But just know.
Beware.
So, yeah, I prefer, as I said, this rendering because again, it speaks of Mount Moriah, where all of this is going to happen, and Moriah. Both 2,000 years ago and 4,000 years ago, where Quran is used to depict the radiant nature of the Lamb Yahweh promised to provide at this time, speaking prophetically of Dowd. So staying focused on Dowd's amazing repertoire of inspired literature, no matter how his lyrics are rendered, the last four words of the 21st refrain are the most important and the least understood. Min, Karen, Ra'am, Ana. And I've now explained everything I can about these words. I didn't go into the details of Mem, but I'll let you
figure that one out.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Would you like to tell us the meaning of the word Mem? What does men mean in Hebrew? Tell us. From. Okay, so the JPS Tanakh. Now, you'd think they would understand Hebrew, right? Which is based upon the Masoretic text, and you would think those boys would understand Hebrew, although their favorite language at the time was Aramaic, and is now Yiddish. Conveys, from the horns of the wild oxen rescues me. You know that this was a rodeo. I don't know if it was a bullfight or a rodeo, but I do know that the ox and the bull is the role that I've been assigned to play in this, and I can assure you that Dowd does not need to be rescued from it. All right, from the horns of the wild oxen rescues me. Now, there is no association between Pesach and a wild ox, nor a dog, nor horns for that matter. That's the JPS 1985, changing answers to rescues. And by the way, there's no justification for that. But otherwise, the verse would turn God into the oxen's horns. The New American Standard Bible gets ana correct, but then commits a similar crime, rendering the passage as if God were a matador. From the horns of the wild oxen, you answer me. Toro! The American Standard Version adds a yay, but otherwise reads like it's descended. The New International Version dropped the reference to answering because, well, that would be too honest, and replaced it with save, which is Yasha, but Yasha wasn't in this text. It was in the last one, not this statement. Maybe they had hangover. I don't know.
Bummer.
Save me from the horns of the wild oxen.
Now, more creative still. And, I think that Sir Francis Bacon was the occultist that that wrote the King James. I think all evidence really points to him. And he was a pretty creative fellow, satanically motivated, but so was King James. So they worked well as a team. So the King James Version Ignoring two of the four words and convoluting the others translates, "For thou hast heard me from the horns of the unicorns."
They're plural now.
What? But we went from oxens, which don't belong in this statement, to mythical beasts, unicorns. Of course, all women want to know if they poop glitter. I really don't know the answer to that, I must confess. But I do have a one issue here. How does "thou hath heard me" from the horns of the unicorns if unicorns only have one horn?
Very good. You are good.
Just want to know. So it's the problem here is that unicorns had to go to plural because horns was plural. So there were two unicorns, not one unicorn, and somehow the Dowd was sandwiched between. By the way, at this point too, it still is nefesh. So no horns were harmed in this in the production of this.
In the writing of this verse, right?
Yes, but nonetheless, he is between the two horns, I guess, of two unicorns. Yes, each with one horn would be the proper rendering of this fairy tale. Now, that must be proof, of course, for Twistians that unicorns actually exist. Now, what's next? Santa Claus?
Yeah.
Easter bunnies? Tooth fairies? Why not? Jesus Christ? What's the difference between a unicorn and Jesus Christ?
All made up. Nothing.
Yep, nothing. They are as real as Odysseus and the Odyssey. So that we don't, that's not fair. Odysseus may have actually existed, even though the Odyssey is a
good
fable.
story.
Yeah. A historic figure in a fabled story where Jesus is not even a historical figure. How many Jesuses were there in the first? Well, if you go from the time of the exile from Eden to the time that the third edition of the King James was written in 1615, something in that range, how many Jesuses existed?
None.
Yeah, Jesus is a fictitious moniker for a fictitious individual. None.
I've seen the first edition of King James. It is King's Imes. It's always King Imes. I think all the way to about the third edition.
Imes. Yeah, it was written with an I. The J in the English alphabet didn't exist until the early 1600s. So that's when your Jesus was born. Yes.
So that's problematic.
Yeah, that's a little problematic there too. So that we don't add to the stench, let's start over. Anah can convey something positive or negative, depending on the context. It is typically rendered to answer, to respond, to testify, or to reply, providing testimony as a witness. At the other extreme, if addressing what Dowd would endure on this day, Anah can be seen as affliction or humiliation. Anah, however, does not mean save or rescue, but what it does mean is important. God responds to those who seek him and will willingly reply to him. This is shub for shub. No shub, no shub for you. This is exactly the same thing. You answer the invitation. Kara,
Sure.
Anna, and guess what God does? Anna responds. Anna, Anna for Anna, shub for shub. Or no shub for you.
Y'all having way too much fun here on this family hour.
Yeah, we are. With all these comedians out of work, and here we are. I make no excuses for it because, quite frankly, first of all, this is family hour. and family should have fun together. Second of all, Yahweh and Dowd both have a sense of humor. If Yahweh didn't have a sense of humor, I can guarantee you I would be unemployed. And the other reason is that this is Chog Matzah, right?
Yes.
What does Chog mean?
Festival.
The festival
Party,
feast.
baby!
Yeah, party.
It's party time!
Party time.
Yeah,
Get down.
Chog Matzah means it's party time. Yeah, it wasn't party time for Dowd, but it is when we Anah, what he has done on the Mikra, and we respond, it is party time. Eternal life, we get perfected, we get adopted into the primo family, we're enriched, we're empowered, we're emancipated, we're enabled. I mean, it's all good things. Party hardy, baby. It's like, being able to sip the good stuff and only having a caffeine high as a result. My lovely wife made me an espresso in these lovely eye cups. See the lovely eye cup? She did. She made me an espresso, and she said, it is the end of Chog Matzah for us, because we began this program at sunset. Remember, I had my lamb the last time and my uneaten bread, my matzah. Well, now.
Oh,
hot damn!
Don't do that to the
3
rest
hours away.
So
don't do that to the rest of us.
So here we
You
are.
get mine in the mail.
Yes. So it's actually a bagel with the.
Close enough.
Well, since we're talking about impersonators, it's a donut. It's a donut impersonating. Yeah, it's a donut impersonating a bagel. There we go. All right, Corinne, as we have learned, has a wide range of definitions to it. It speaks of shining, being radiant, emitting, and sending out brilliant rays of light supernaturally. Corinne is also a horn, and that symbolism can denote the power and authority of a king, as well as the altar, where all of the most important sacrificial offerings were burned before the temple. You go up that raised pathway to it. It had 4 horns, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. So Yahweh's uses horns a lot in his communication. Those 2 horns happen to be Dowd is the 2 horns as the ram in the front, and I'm the 2 horns as the bull and the back, and that ain't no bull. So Corinne means all of those different things, and Yahweh uses Corinne regularly to convey them. It's kind of funny though, to that raised highway that Yahweh speaks about being created from this world to the next. It goes right over the place where the Passover lamb and the Adamah Parah, the red heifer, are sacrificed, and you go right between those 4 horns, and that leads directly to the home of the covenant family, which, by the way, will be created out of around radiant
light. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep. So all of those things are important, as well as the fact that Koran is the same word that Yahweh used in the dress rehearsal for Dowd's Passover sacrifice, speaking of the sacrificial lamb that was substituted by Yahweh. God said he had shining horns of radiant light, Koran, flashy, radiant rays similar to lightning from a supernatural source, symbolic of power, status, and might, a trumpet for signaling a message, and he was on the summit of the mountain. So in the 22nd Psalm, we are on that same mountain, on the same day of the year, observing the same Mikra, separated as these events are by exactly 40 Yobel, 1968 BCE and 33 CE. That's one of the things that's just so stunning about Judaism. They actually believe Maimonides. And Maimonides was just flat out stupid when he came up with his dating. He did everything but incorporate Islam into his dating system, the sanctification of the moon and the number 19. And he completely forgot about everything that Yahweh said about his timing and these events. He completely misses everything that would cause you to recognize that Adam and Chava were expelled from Gan Eden in 3968 BCE, year 0 Yah. And exactly 40 Yobel after that, 40 being the time of completion of a time of testing, 40 Yobel meaning the time where slaves are freed, debts are all forgiven, and we return to the land. And 40 Yobel from that moment would be 1968 BCE. That's the dress rehearsal, exactly the time that Abraham and Ishak went out Mount Moriah to have this dress rehearsal for Passover, where Yahweh says, I'm going to supply that lamb. And then 40 Yobel, 2,000 years, 40 times 50, from that exact moment, in the exact same place, Dowd arrives to fulfill Chag Matsah, Pesach, Matsah, and Bikurym in year 4,000 Yah. So when would year 6,000 Yah be based upon the obvious? 2033. So we are 8.5 years away from Dowd's return with Yahweh, and not 250, according to Maimonides and his sanctification of the moon and his love for the number 19. You've been played for fools by your rabbis for so long. Jews, wake up. So in the 22nd Psalm, we're right back on that same mountain, aren't we? On the same day of the year.
Yes, sir.
Observing the same Mikra, separated as those events are by exactly 40 Yobel, which is 2,000 years. The 40th Yobel year, the 80th Yobel year, and soon the 120th Yobel year. Those is the meaning. And by the way, the rabbis know it.
You had to.
You know why Rabbi Akiba, when he realized that Jews completely screwed up the arrival of the Messiah and the Son of God to fulfill Passover in 33 CE, so that Dowd was worn like a skin by the fictitious Jesus Christ. You know, when he figured that out, you know what he did? 133 was also a Yobel year.
Yeah.
That's when he came up with the false Messiah, Bar Kokhba. He knew exactly. They've always known exactly that there were 3 of these 40 Yobel epochs, 2,000 years from Eden to the Passover lamb harbinger on Moriah, to the fulfillment of Passover on Moriah, to the return to Moriah in Jerusalem by the Messiah and by God. They've always known it. They just won't tell you about it because it destroys their goddamn religion. They can't control you. They can't fleece you without lying to you. Now, those who miss the meaning offered by the words within the passage find their oxen and, of course, their unicorns in the vowel pointing, not in the text itself. Strong Concordance, based upon the King James Version, says Ra'im is from Ra'am and translates it as unicorn, not once, but 9 times, and is probably the great aurochs, or the wild bulls, which are now extinct. The exact meaning, they say, is not known. But just to say we're clueless.
Yeah. Not known to strong, but
Yeah, not known. Yeah. I mean, you need to understand, that's why I tell people all the time, if you're dependent upon Strongs to validate translations, then you're like the guy with one watch. He asks what time it is. Oh, it's right now. It's 7:30, whatever. It's 7:33, and he is confident. What time? It's 7:33. And you ask the guy with 3 watches what time it is. He said, "Let's see here. One says 7:25. One 7:35. One 7:4. Heck, I don't know." at 7:30ish.
Yeah. The mean time is.
Very good.
Yes. So what Strong's is trying to do is to justify the King James. So they've got one translation they're trying to justify. If you've got only the King James, you're in a world of hurt with Strong's alone trying to validate translations. You need more than just that. I think my wife just told me that we've been 2 hours, which would be the end of our time, but I think it's really an hour and a half that we've been doing this, correct?
No.
And if we are at an hour and a half, then we have just a few more minutes to wrap up this program. If we're 2 hours, let me know, and we
started at 5.
past Wookiee's bedtime. And what time is it now?
It is 6:56.
Oh, so we
By
are
my
very close.
one watch.
Yeah, close to 2 hours. Almost 2 hours now.
We are close.
But that's,
Okay,
that's normal
Yes,
for us. That's
it's
good
fine.
for us.
that's a normal 1 hour of family time. It's just 2 hours.
Yeah.
So maybe unicorns do have two horns. We can't keep 1 hour straight anyway. Who knows? It's all possible. So, anyway, Strong goes on to report that Ra'am means lifted up and to rise, but they don't bother to explain what rising has to do with wild bulls or unicorns, for that matter. And that's probably because who align themselves with the spirit represented by the horned and flashy one will go in the opposite direction. So here's another brilliant, illustrative example. The King James Version renders Bamidbar, Numbers 23:22 as, God brought them out of Egypt. He hath, as it were, the strength of a unicorn. Boy.
Wow. I heard that.
Yep, your God, he has the strength of a fictitious animal.
Mm.
But, I guess it fits with Christianity because, well, the Christian God was so anemic, Jews killed him.
Mhm.
Oh, you have to keep bringing that up, huh?
Yeah, keep up. Sorry about that. But okay, but that's of course not what Moshe wrote. The Torah doesn't demean its inspiration. It doesn't call God a unicorn.
No.
The text actually reads, God delivered them out of the crucibles of Mitzrayim with the power, toapah, the ability through choice to deliver and to raise them up to a higher place and status. Ra'am.
No.
Inaccurate diacritical markings can render God as foolish as the mythical unicorn, or in the case of the New American Standard Bible, can put him in league with Hasatan. God brings them out of Egypt. He is for them like the horns of the wild ox. What did the children of Israel make?
Golden calf.
The golden cow. And that golden cow ain't no cow. That sucker had
Had
horns.
big horns. Yeah.
Yep. Well, that's probably a good place for us to stop. Wookie is over here snoring on me. My donut, my bagel masquerading as a donut.
Sorry we kept you up, Wookie.
Is calling my name. We've had a good time tonight.
Yes, sir.
Talking about something that is really serious, but if you can have a laugh here and there along the way, so much the better. So thank you, fellas. We will continue this. I would like to continue it to the end of the 22nd Mizmor before we resume in our expose on the Choter and man from Edom. Even though the Choter and the man from Edom are as essential as anything, there's no purpose of the Choter or the man from Edom if you don't know who Dowd is and what Dowd did. And that's the purpose of the 22nd Mizmor. So I'd like for us to make our way through this. So as soon as we can tomorrow, we'll do another 2 or 3 shows. If you all have desire to participate, let us know and coordinate it with Leah. And we'll get have more fun together than alone, as they say. So
Great.
we'll see if we can summon some wild oxes and some unicorns and have a good time. Thank you very much. I'm going to have my bagel masquerading as a donut.
Cheers. Happy donut.